All right, get this. We are diving into a story today, and it's a big one. We're
Yeah.
talking rags to riches, nation building, even a five-star hotel right there in the heart of colonial India.
Wow.
Yeah, the Tata family.
Okay.
And get this, they built a business empire worth over $110 billion today.
Yeah, and you're not just going to hear about a company, right?
Yeah.
You're going to hear about a family, and their story is so closely tied to the story of India itself. It's almost impossible to separate the two.
It's wild. And lucky for us, we've got a great guide for this deep dive.
Okay.
We're cracking open The Tatas, How a Family Built a Business and a Nation by Girish Kuber.
Right, right.
And we're talking generations, right? Generations of ambition, risk-taking, and this really fascinating dedication to India's progress. Frankly, it's a little bit mind-blowing.
It's funny. The thing that always gets me is how many people in Britain today consider Tata to be more British, and how they operate than some British companies.
Wow. Yeah,
That's just a taste of how the story flips the script.
for sure. And it all kicks off way back in 1822 with a guy named Nusserwanji Tata,
Okay.
born into a priestly family in Gujarat.
Right.
Not exactly the typical image of a business tycoon,
Right.
But Nusserwanji, he's not playing by the rules. He ditches the expected path, heads for Bombay, the place to be back then, and just pure grit, builds this successful cotton trading business like it's the OG Indian dream.
I love it.
Right, playing out right in front of us.
Yeah.
So we've got this self-made man setting the stage.
Okay.
Enter his son, Jamsetji Tata, born the same year as, get this, John D. Rockefeller, 1839.
No way.
I know. Talk about an auspicious start, right?
Oh, wow. Dead.
So Jamsetji inherits his dad's business drive. But here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
This is a guy facing down a devastating plague in Bombay
Oh, wow.
while building the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel. And not just any hotel, India's first five-star hotel.
Wow.
He wanted to prove a point. He wanted to show that India could not only match but exceed the standards set by the West.
Bold move.
Right. It's like, hey, colonial powers, we can do luxury too.
And we're going to do it our way.
Exactly. But it wasn't just hotels, though.
Right.
He had this bigger vision for India. He saw beyond textiles.
Oh, absolutely. He was obsessed with steel and hydroelectricity
Yeah.
long before anyone else saw their potential in India. This wasn't just about making money for Jamsetji. This was about laying the foundation for a modern, industrialized India. I mean, those early ventures would become giants. Tata Steel and Tata Power.
He was literally powering up India's future. And get this. He was so determined to put Bangalore silk on the map, those gorgeous saris, that he started a whole silk farm organization, even brought in experts from Japan to train local farmers. Talk about a global vision.
Wow, that's incredible.
Right. And we can't forget about education either.
Oh, right.
This is a guy who went head-to-head with the British government to establish the Indian Institute of Science.
Wow.
Even sold off some of his own land to fund it. He wanted an institution that could stand with the best in the world.
That's amazing.
The man was playing the long game,
Yeah.
even if it meant taking on the powers that be.
Right.
But then, in 1904, Jamsetji passes away before many of his dreams were realized.
Right.
So where does the story go from there?
Well, that's where his sons come in, Dorabji and Ratanji. Dorabji, the elder, he steps up to the industrial plate. Now, imagine stepping into your father's shoes, right? This giant of a man during World War I. Talk about pressure.
And not just any pressure.
No.
Trying to make Tata Steel a global force during a war where steel is everything. That's a whole other level.
Talk about a challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, Dorabji faced so much skepticism, like outright prejudice. People thought an Indian company couldn't possibly meet the demands of wartime production. But he proved them wrong. They supplied over 1,500 miles worth of steel tracks for the Allied war effort.
Yeah.
1,500 miles of steel.
It's mind-boggling. He didn't just meet expectations, he blew past them.
Completely.
But while Dorabji's busy with steel, his brother Ratanji takes a different path.
Totally different.
Right, this is a guy all about social change.
Yeah, and it's this fascinating dynamic that emerges within the family. Two brothers, united by those values Jamsetji instilled, but each expressing them so differently.
I love that.
Ratanji poured his energy and his wealth into education reform. He even supported Gandhi's fight against apartheid in South Africa.
Wow.
They both understood the power they had, but they used it in different arenas.
And then there's this other really interesting character who enters the picture, Naval Tata. Now, he wasn't born into the family. He was actually adopted by Ratanji.
Right, and this adoption, it wasn't just a personal thing, I mean, Naval's story is pretty amazing. He went from being an orphan to inheriting a massive fortune. But then he becomes this powerful voice for workers' rights. He even played a role in shaping J.R.D. Tata's rise within the company.
Hold on, J.R.D. Tata, that's a name you still hear everywhere today. What's his connection to all of this?
Oh, that's where we really get into the modern era of the Tata Group. And let me tell you, it is a wild ride. Just imagine a man so passionate about aviation that he gets his pilot's license when he's barely in his 20s.
Really?
And then goes on to found Air India,
Wow.
India's first airline.
Okay, that's next level.
Yeah.
But didn't things get a little complicated between him and the Indian government?
Yeah.
There's a bigger story there, right?
There is. You see, JRD, he really believed in the power of business to drive progress. But he wasn't afraid to butt heads with the government, particularly with Nehru's policies
Right.
and the nationalization of Air India,
Yeah.
a company he built from scratch. It was devastating for him.
So this successful visionary leader, he suddenly has to grapple with this thing he created being taken away.
It was tough.
That's brutal.
But even after that, even with those setbacks, you see JRD's commitment to innovation never wavered. Under his leadership, Tata expanded into all these new areas. Tata Chemicals, the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. His fingerprints are all over the company's growth.
It's like he had this unwavering belief in India's potential, and he just poured everything into making it a reality.
It's amazing.
So we're leaving off with JRD and this incredible legacy.
Yeah.
But how does his story connect to the Tata company we know today? We've got to hear about Ratan Tata and everything that comes after. This is getting good, and I can't wait to dive into the next chapter. We'll be right back.
Okay, so we're back, and we're picking up with Ratan Tata, right, stepping onto this massive stage. I mean, trying to follow a legend like J.R.D. Tata, that can't be easy. What kind of challenges did he face early on?
Oh, tons. Picture this. India in the early 1990s, right?
Okay.
Grappling with this economic slump.
Right.
And Ratan Tata, he's taking the reins of this massive company.
Huge shoes to fill. Right, but here's the thing. The resistance, it wasn't just from outside factors.
Oh, interesting.
It came from inside the Tata Group itself.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about a trial by fire.
Wow. So not only is he dealing with a changing economic landscape,
Right.
he's also navigating internal power struggle.
Exactly.
And you mentioned Rajan Nair, this powerful union leader. What made that situation so tense?
Oh, Rajan Nair.
Yeah.
He was a force of nature. Like, he viewed Ratan Tata with suspicion from the start.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Saw him as an outsider,
Right.
trying to disrupt the established order.
Right.
And their first big clash, it involved, believe it or not, security personnel.
Okay.
A seemingly minor issue, but man, it escalated quickly. Threats, a standoff, everyone was on edge.
I bet. So it sounds like Ratan Tata, he had to assert himself. And quickly, what was his strategy in dealing with someone like Nair?
So here's the thing about Ratan Tata. He doesn't back down easily. He understood that he had to set a precedent, especially with the unions.
Right.
So when Nair launched this hunger strike in protest, Ratan Tata, he didn't budge.
Wow.
Nair was arrested. The resolution favored the company. That early win, it solidified Ratan Tata's image. This was a leader who wouldn't be pushed around.
That's a heck of a way to make an entrance.
Right.
But his real passion, it lay elsewhere, didn't it? He had this whole other vision, this car.
The Tata Indica.
Okay.
And this wasn't just a car. It was a statement.
Okay.
Ratan Tata wanted to create a car for the average Indian.
Affordable.
Affordable. But at the time, it seemed impossible.
Right.
People thought he was nuts for trying to take on those established players like Maruti Suzuki.
Yeah. With their affordable model.
Exactly. They're like, this guy's aiming way too high.
So what made him so sure he could pull it off?
Ratan Tata had this unwavering belief that India was ready for something more, something better.
Okay.
He pictured a car that combined the style of the Maruti Zen,
Okay.
the roominess of the Ambassador, but with the affordability of the Maruti 800. A tall order.
That's ambitious.
Oh, yeah, and expensive. We're talking 1,700 core.
That's a huge gamble, especially with the economy struggling.
It was a gamble, but he was all in.
So how did he get everyone on board with this plan?
Ratan Tata, he was hands-on. I mean, he wasn't just signing checks. He was involved in every step of the Indica's development.
Wow.
Handpicking the engineers, partnering with hundreds of small manufacturers across India. I mean, almost 98% of the car's parts sourced locally. He even had the foresight to invest in computer-aided design.
Which was still pretty cutting edge back then.
Oh, totally.
But even with all that effort, didn't the Indica hit some bumps in the road at first?
The initial launch,
Yeah.
rough.
Really?
Quality issues, the reviews were brutal. People were like, this is it. This is the flop that buries Tata Motors.
Ouch.
But Ratan Tata, he doesn't give up that easily.
Okay, so he goes back to the drawing board.
He listens to the criticism, retools, and launches the Indica V2.
Indica V2. Okay, so he turns things around. What was different this time? What clicked with Indian consumers?
It delivered on its promise.
Okay.
An affordable car, reliable, made for everyday Indians.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't just about the price, right? It was about this need that no other car company had really tapped into. This dream of car ownership for millions of people.
It became an aspiration.
It was a win for Tata Motors, but it was a win for India, too.
How so?
A car designed and made in India was competing on the world stage and winning.
Right.
It proved that India could produce world-class vehicles. Changed the whole global perception. Huge. And then you had foreign investment. It was a game changer for the Indian auto industry.
So the Tata Indica, it became this symbol of national pride.
Absolutely.
The little car that could.
It did.
It did. But even beyond the cars, what gets me about the Tatas is their ethics. Like walking away from a huge project in Tanzania, all to protect flamingos. That's almost unheard of in the corporate world.
Yeah, that's the Tata way, though. They've always understood that their responsibility goes beyond the bottom line.
Right.
So, 2012, Tata Chemicals gets this invite from the Tanzanian government, right? Big project, soda ash, potentially lucrative near Lake Natron.
Okay.
But they realize pretty quickly, this project, it's a threat to the flamingos that depend on the lake.
So what did they do?
They walked away.
No way.
Yeah, even with the promise of big profits, they chose the flamingos and the lake.
Wow.
Bold move, but it solidified their reputation. This was a company that valued ethical conduct, environmental responsibility.
Which makes their next big move even more interesting, right?
What's that?
The acquisition of Jaguar Land Rover.
Oh, right.
During a global recession.
Yeah.
These iconic British brands that were struggling.
Yeah, a lot of people question that decision, like why take on those brands, especially when Tata Motors had its own issues.
Exactly. It seemed like a huge risk.
Yeah.
What did Ratan Tata see that others didn't?
He recognized the value of those brands.
Okay.
Their heritage, their global potential. He didn't just want to acquire them. He wanted to revitalize them.
And that's exactly what he did.
He invested heavily in Jaguar Land Rover, modernized everything, and empowered them to develop new models.
And they went from almost going under to being one of the most profitable luxury brands.
Amazing turnaround.
It is.
And it really speaks to the Tata Group's whole approach, spotting potential where others see risk.
It's incredible.
They're committed to growth, long-term success.
And think about the historical aspect.
Oh, I know, right?
This company, rooted in colonial India,
Right.
now owns these quintessential British brands. What a power move.
Talk about flipping the script.
Right. But even with these wins, Ratan Tata's time as chairman, it wasn't without controversy.
Right.
Cyrus Mistry.
Yeah.
Big story.
Initially, it seemed like a smooth transition, right?
Yeah.
Mistry, he came from a family that was already super tight with the Tatas, and he brought fresh ideas.
Right.
But their visions for the company, they diverged.
Yeah.
And it led to that very public, very messy removal of Mistry in 2016.
That was huge news.
It shook the Tata Group to its core.
What were the main disagreements between Ratan Tata and Cyrus Mistry?
Well, you had Mistry, right? His background was in construction and finance. He was all about efficiency, shareholder value.
Okay.
So he starts these audits, starts selling off assets that he considered dead weight.
Right.
And this approach, it clashed with the Tata Group's more traditional way of doing things.
Interesting. So it was more of a clash of cultures.
In a way, yeah. One focused on the short term, the other on the long game.
And how did the Tata Group handle the fallout from such a public breakup?
Well, it was a wild time. Ratan Tata actually stepped back in to lead temporarily while they searched for a new chairman.
Oh, wow.
And in 2017, they appointed Natajan Chandrasekaran,
Okay.
the guy who led Tata Consultancy Services, TCS, their tech powerhouse.
So Chandrasekaran takes over, inherits this incredible legacy, but now we're talking a whole new world. Tech giants, global conglomerates. What's his vision for Tata in this rapidly changing landscape? We'll unpack all of that when we come back. So we're back, and I'm thinking about this legacy, right? Ethical business practices, nation building, it's like it's in their blood. But the world's a different place now. Tech giants everywhere. What's Chandrasekaran's plan for navigating this new landscape?
That's a great question. He takes over just as the rules of the game are changing faster than ever before, you know. But If we've learned one thing about the Tatas, it's that they're adaptable.
For sure. I mean, from textiles to software, steel to cars, they've done it all.
It's incredible. But
Yeah.
Chandrasekhar knew they needed to streamline, right,
Hmm.
consolidate, focus on their strengths while staying adaptable.
Right. So how do you do that?
One of his biggest moves, pushing digital transformation across the board, using their expertise with Tata consultancy services.
It's like having this secret weapon, right?
Kind of, yeah. But it's more than just technology, you know. He gets the importance of the Tata brand, that legacy of trust, social responsibility. He's been clear about businesses needing to be a force for good, tackling things like climate change, inequality.
Which is kind of amazing when you think about it. A company their size, they could easily just chase profits, but they're choosing to engage with these massive challenges.
And it all circles back, doesn't it, to Jamsetji Tata.
Uh-huh.
That core belief that business can be a force for good. It's not just philanthropy as an afterthought. It's woven into everything they do.
They're not just building companies, they're building a better world.
Right, and that's what makes their story so inspiring. I mean, what is their secret? Is it the leadership, the values, or is it something more, something about that connection between the Tata family and India itself?
It's the million-dollar question, but one thing's for sure, there are some valuable lessons here for everyone.
Absolutely. We're talking long-term vision, ethical conduct, investing in people, communities. Those are principles that go way beyond any one industry.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Tatas, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from all of this?
I think it's that real success, true success, it's not just about the profits. It's about purpose, making a positive difference in the world. And the Tata story, over a century, countless industries, it shows us that's not just possible, it's essential.
Couldn't have said it better myself. A powerful reminder that we all have a part to play in building a better future. And hey, maybe we can't all build a billion-dollar company, but we can all make ethical choices, right? Give back to our communities, approach our work, whatever it is, with purpose. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the world of Tata. It's been a pleasure.